Today, I'm going to show you how to prepare a dinner buffet made up of about 100 assorted mini treats without getting overwhelmed. I dissolve 8 grams of dry yeast in 250 milliliters of warm milk. I add a teaspoon of honey to that, mix well, and set it aside for 5 minutes. In a mixing bowl, I put 500 grams of flour, a teaspoon of salt, and mix. Before making a well in the center, I crack an egg in the middle and add the milk with the yeast and honey. To finish, I add about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. You should know that I organize myself over 3 days. So on the first day, I prepare this 2-in-1 dough that will be used for both the mini burgers and the mini pizzas. I knead until I get a soft dough, which will take between 5 and 10 minutes. After kneading, the dough should have this consistency. I shape it into a ball and set the dough aside in the mixing bowl. Cover it with a clean towel and let it rise quietly for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Next, I'm going to prepare a shortcrust pastry for the mini quiches. So, I mix 150 grams of flour and half a teaspoon of salt, and I also add 70 grams of soft butter. I mix it with my fingertips until I get a crumbly dough. I finish by adding 40 ml of water, and from there, I mix until I can form a ball of dough. However, we try to handle the dough as little as possible with our hands to avoid activating the gluten network, which makes it. I will then knead the dough this way once or twice before forming a small ball. I'll cover the shortcrust pastry with plastic wrap on the surface and refrigerate for 24 hours. After an hour and a half, the burger and mini pizza dough has doubled in size. We're going to punch it down to release the air, then we'll place it on the work surface. You weigh your dough and then, depending on its weight, you divide it in 2. Afterwards, you can just do it by eye. It's not complicated. I shape a ball with both pieces of dough, so one will be for the mini burger and the other for the mini pizza. The dough for the mini pizza, I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap and set it aside in the freezer. And for the mini burger dough, I'm going to divide it into several small pieces of 25 grams each. So don't worry, even if it looks very small, it's going to rise, so it'll be perfect for mini burgers. I've made nice round balls. I set aside my little dough balls on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, cover them with a clean towel, and let them rise for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes of resting, we're going to brush the dough balls with a mixture of 1 egg yolk and a tablespoon of milk, or you can brush them with a whole egg instead. I sprinkle the tops of the mini burgers with sesame seeds and bake them in the preheated oven at 180 degrees for 20 minutes. After they come out of the oven, we'll let the burger buns cool fully. Meanwhile, take 600 grams of ground meat, add olive oil, salt, pepper, and fresh or dried parsley, as you like. Mix everything well. And then we're going to form mini hamburger patties, which we'll place in a row on a sheet of parchment paper. Each time, we'll fold the sheet over itself and place more hamburger patties. Once I've formed all my little hamburger patties, I'm going to wrap them in plastic wrap and put everything in the freezer. The mini burgers have cooled down nicely, so they're at room temperature, and they're super soft. We're going to put them in a freezer bag and also store them in the freezer. Preparations for day 1 are complete. On day 2, we'll wash, peel, and cut 5 potatoes into small pieces. We're going to boil the potatoes in water for 15 minutes. Then we'll drain them and set them aside in a large container. We're going to mash the potatoes using a potato masher or a fork. We're going to add a 120-gram can of tuna and then chop some fresh cilantro. This is a pastry filling idea, but you can use any filling you like. I season with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and I mix everything well. Then I add 3 portions of Laughing Cow cheese. You can also use Philadelphia. We're going to saute everything well, mash it all together, and I add a small handful of grated cheese. I mix everything well, and finally, I'm going to crack an egg. This will act as a binder for the filling. We're going to mix it well, and the filling is finally ready. We put a tablespoon of filling on the brick pastry sheet and then fold it into a triangle shape. Press down firmly on the end each time to prevent the filling from escaping. At the end, you can use a pair of scissors to cut off any excess dough if there is any, and tuck the last piece into the small fold. Next, we're going to wrap the brick pastry sheets individually in the paper they come with. We're going to store them in an airtight container and put them in the refrigerator until the next day. Next, I took 500 grams of puff pastry. You'll find the recipe in my book, or you can even use 2 store-bought puff pastry sheets. We're going to place it on the floured work surface and roll it out thinly. I cut off the 4 ends to get smooth edges. Don't form a ball with the leftover dough. Just stack the pieces and roll the dough out again. To make more croissants, I divide the dough in 2 and then cut as many triangles as possible. If you're using store-bought puff pastry, they're usually sold in circles, so it'll be easier for you to cut your triangles. You can make 8 mini croissants per sheet of dough. I spread the dough a little at the edge. I place a small piece of garlic and herb cheese, and finally, I add a cooked shrimp before rolling it up. Just like a croissant, you make as many mini croissants as possible, depending on how much dough or filling you have. We keep the mini croissants in an airtight container, so I put them together with the Briques. You can store everything either in the fridge or in the freezer, knowing that they will be baked the next day. After 24 hours in the refrigerator, I take my shortcrust pastry and I'm going to roll it out. Between 2 sheets of parchment paper, I add a little bit of flour. Rolling out the dough between 2 sheets of baking paper helps keep it from breaking, and above all, it's much easier. We're going to add a little bit of flour, not too much. We'll roll it out lightly, and then, using a cookie cutter, we'll cut out small circles. So, same thing for the leftover dough. You roll it out again so you can make more mini quiches. I place my little dough circles in muffin molds, prick them with a fork, and then refrigerate them for another 24 hours. Of course, you can put them in the freezer. For day 3, the final preparation day, we take the pizza dough that we took out of the freezer 2 hours earlier. We're going to roll it out with a rolling pin, and we're going to roll it out very thinly. And still using a cookie cutter, this time we're going to make little circles. So you take a cookie cutter of whatever size you want, depending on how big you want your mini pizzas to be. So, same thing with the excess dough. You roll it out again to make more mini pizzas, and you top your mini pizzas however you like. I put tomato sauce, slices of deli meat, black olives, and grated cheese. I bake the mini pizzas in a 200°C oven for 13 minutes. For the mini quiche mixture, I'll beat 2 eggs into an omelet. I added the other one later. Then I add 250 ml of heavy cream. I put in some salt and thyme, and I finish with a tablespoon of honey. I mix everything together well. As I mentioned earlier, I added another egg because I thought it wasn't enough. Next, I cut my goat cheese into small pieces. I pour the quiche mixture into the well-chilled crust up to 3/4 full. I generously arrange the goat cheese on the surface. And I bake my mini quiches at 180°C for 40 minutes. I prepared a baking sheet with parchment paper. I place my mini croissants on it, and I brush them with a whole egg for a golden finish. And I sprinkle sesame seeds on top. Finally, I bake them at 180°C for 45 minutes. Meanwhile, I also fry the Briques in a little sunflower oil. We brown them for 5 minutes on each side, and finally, we set the Briques aside on paper towels to remove the excess oil. So, at this point, we already have the pizzas, quiches, croissants, and Briques cooked. Next, we'll start making the mini burgers. So, we made sure in the morning to take the buns and the meat out of the freezer. 1 to 2 hours before, we're going to start cooking. The mini ground beef patties. I sliced the burger buns in half. For the sauce, you can put whatever you want. I used ketchup. On each burger bun, I put a small piece of lettuce, the little hamburger patties, and finally a slice of cheddar cheese. You close your mini burgers and stick them with a mini skewer. To finish, we're going to spread garlic and herb cheese on a tortilla flatbread. We're going to add a few arugula leaves, then I'll add slices of smoked salmon and roll everything up tightly. Then we'll cut every 2 centimeters or so to get mini rolled wraps. And in the meantime, I kept my mini hearties warm under a clean cloth in the turned-off oven until it was time to serve. And finally, arrange your mini hearties nicely on a serving platter. I hope you enjoyed this video, that you watched it until the end, and most of all, that you'll give it a try yourself. Don't forget to comment, like, and share the video. See you soon.